Joining me on the line as he does every Friday on the show, and then we get sidetracked and we have a 20-minute conversation about really deep things. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Reyes is on the line. Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Not much. I mean, besides a healthy friendship where we can openly exchange ideas and talk to each other. That's what's going on right now.
Oh, God, it's beautiful.
It is. And I think we've also decided to interrupt with our jobs and do a little movie talk because, the folks at home don't want to hear us wax poetic. They want to, well, as long as it's about movies and pop culture and news.
There's a country song, If the World Had a Front Porch, that really talks about it basically says if the world had a front porch, it'd pretty much be a better world because, of how, just go listen to the song and you'll probably agree with me. The world had a front porch like we did back then. We'd still have our problems, but we'd all be friends. Treating your neighbors like he's your next of kin. Wouldn't be gone with the wind if the world had a front porch like we did back then. It's Tracy Lawrence is the artist from 1994. From 1994, Tracy Lawrence. I've never been able to do a good Casey Kasem.
But I knew that was what you were going for. It's like throwing it back to 1994. This classic from Tracy Lawrence goes out to Laura in Decatur who wants to tell her husband to drop off the papers. It's done.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend. Your Casey Kasem is really good.
And now the Scooby-Doo with the weather.
Oh, that's odd. That was such a weird combination of someone that does a voice for something and something else,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me on the line to talk about movies. Got a couple interesting movies coming out this weekend. Plus, we're going to get into the world of movie news, which if you caught the podcast earlier this week, we did dive into the Will Smith stuff and the Oscars. We're going to go back to that here in a few minutes, along with the Bruce Willis story and boy, that's sad, and a few other things. But let's start with the actual movie reviews. The big one this weekend is Morbius, another Marvel movie coming out. Now, the reviews so far don't look good for it. Mike Reyes, what say you?
I had fun with it. Okay.
So, hold on 1 second. The way you said it was like, I had fun with it, like you're recalling something you did while drinking tequila, and you're like, I think it was fun, but now that I'm looking back at it, it may have been a bad idea.
Oh, no. I'm not. I was trying to hype up the sort of surprise factor, although there is a gag, and there's a short gag involving tequila in this film with who is arguably the true star of Morbius, but we're going to start with the fact that for those of you who don't know, Morbius is a Marvel Sony movie, not a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. There's a big difference between those two. And when you watch Morbius and Venom, you can definitely see that difference. That being said, Morbius is about a young doctor played by Jared Leto who has a degenerative disorder, and he has been looking for a cure almost his whole life. Like, he's just been whip smart since day one. Wins a Nobel Prize and then rejects it and insults, like, this is what we see in, like, the first 5 minutes. Like, he apparently wins the Nobel Prize and rejects it, and then he thinks he's found a cure, and it turns him into a man-bat.
Yes.
Man-bat vampire.
That old tale, Man-Bat.
Yeah, Man-Bat, based on the hit Marvel comic. While we're on that subject, some of the themes to this movie are cribbing so hard from the Batman theme of the Nolan trilogy. I'll have to look for the exact cue on the soundtrack and send it to you, but it is just basically, you could tell they temp scored this thing with Dark Knight music, and the composer was like, yeah, I can do that within the realm of copyright, outside of copyright infringement.
Awesome. So you liked it?
I actually enjoyed it. It's I give it a 3 out of 5. Look, I am not a huge fan of the Venom movies, but at least in Venom, there were some things that I could definitely latch on to, like character stuff. Tom Hardy's great as Venom. I just wish it was in better hands in terms of like crafting the story and whatnot. Morbius had enough mad science involved in it that I was excited. It kept my interest. And then, Jared Leto, problematic as he may be in real life, he's still a pretty good actor, and he does a decent job with Morbius. Again, this is really a case of I kind of wish they took some more time to really flesh this whole thing out. And also the editing in this movie feels a little all over the board because there are scenes in the trailers that do not make it into the film. And I feel like this somehow got hacked in the editing room. It's like an hour 44 without trailers.
Okay.
This also has one of the laziest post-credit scenes I've ever seen because it's like they took one scene, split it in two, and just put both of those segments in during the credits.
We'll get to we'll do a spoiler warning here in a second. Because I want to talk about that post-credit scene because I did look that up. But
the best part is Matt Smith steals this damn movie. Without question, Matt Smith is having so much fun with this. And for those of you who may not know Mr. Matt Smith, he was the 11th Doctor on Doctor Who, which is part of why I am a huge fan of his. But also he's just so fun to watch when he really gets what he's doing and just jumps into it. That's also what made him a fun Skynet / Genesis and Terminator Genesis. But in Morbius, he plays this wonderful villain that just he's relishing in, because his character Milo also has like the same degenerative illness as Michael Morbius. They met as kids in a children's ward. And, they're really good friends. And, Michael's basically been doing all of this to try and cure himself and his friend. And when he, gets his powers, he's just the guy that has fun with it, the villain, the irresponsible one that, takes out some guys who mess with him in a bar and, dances in front of his mirror because he's all ripped now. And Matt Smith there's not really a bad performance in this movie, but Matt Smith is just taking the cake and stealing the film. And if there's any reason for you to go see it, it's that.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me on the line. All right, real quick, spoiler warnings, because I do want to ask you a couple questions about this. Okay, so if you have not seen the movie and you're going to and you don't want to hear this part, just fast forward 5 minutes and you should be good. Okay?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, gate.
All right, so do we find out what Spider-Man universe this is in?
No, we do not, because... But
it is a different universe than Tom Holland, correct?
Okay, so I'm actually I pitched this to my editors, and at the time of this recording, I think we might be going ahead with it because I'm trying to figure this out myself. I think I figured out which Spider-Man universe this is in. It's not Tom Holland's. Because as we see, Adrian Toomes zaps into this universe. The Adrian Toomes played by Michael Keaton zaps into this universe. And it is a different universe from the one he's in. And there's a lot of confusion with these post-credit scenes because it's basically one scene where he zaps into a jail, makes a crack where he's like, oh, I hope the food's better in this joint. And then, which again, that's Michael Keaton delivering that line. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
But then, the news is a man claiming he's Adrian Toomes zapped here and we're releasing him from prison. And it's okay, why is it such a deal that he's claiming he's Adrian Toomes? Because obviously he's a known quantity in this world, but how? Yeah. And then B, why are you releasing him from prison? Is your Adrian Toomes in this world a humanitarian or a hero or something?
Yeah.
And then as soon as he's released, it goes back to the credits and then jumps into another scene where Jared Leto's hauling ass out into the middle of a desert of some sort or some sort of deserted area because this is supposed to be outside of New York City. And then Toomes meets him there in a new Vulture suit and he's like, I don't know why I'm here. I think it's got something to do with Spider-Man. People like us, we need to stick together. And then it's okay, I think, you were originally going to use the What's Up Doc scene. Well, there's a couple moments of Vulture that are in the trailers that they don't seem to be using. There's several scenes and lines that we've seen that are not in this film. There's a sequence of Tyrese and Al Madrigal's FBI agents in the woods. There's another whole speech with Morbius' mentor, played by Jared Harris, that's not in there. That's another thing I'm proposing to write on is the missing stuff, because I don't think we've seen a comic book movie this edited since Suicide Squad.
Interesting. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com. Is it fair to say, just from the trailers and the look and everything, I feel like it's in the Andrew Garfield universe?
Yeah, all right, fine. I'll just come out and say it. I think it's in the Andrew Garfield universe.
I don't know why, but from the trailers and everything, I haven't seen the movie. I did watch the post-credit scene because that's all I really gave a crap about, because that just sets up the next movie. But I felt like it was in the Andrew Garfield thing. scene.
Well, thank you for supporting piracy and trying to take my job away. That's cool.
It is what it is.
That's not cool. But anyway, the clues that I've seen. Let's see what did I say?
Hey, real quick,
there's a headline on.
You know what would be a funny game for the just Marvel movies in general, the MCU and the other universes? It was Spider-Man in the Webverse against the Vulture. Kind of make a clue game out of it.
Yeah.
It was.
You know what?
It was Tom Cruise as Iron Man in the multiverse versus Wolverine from the, whatever.
Oh, I really hope we get Tom Cruise in Multiverse of Madness, because I like that theory. Yeah. I have loved that theory for some time. And like they keep going back to that. Like even in an earlier draft of Into the Spider-Verse, there was going to be a whole gag where like Tom Cruise and James Cameron are doing like commentary for some sort of Spider-Man project. And like, obviously the story of him almost playing Tony Stark in 2008 is something that no one's really let go.
Yeah.
And to be able to land that sort of thing would be, why not? But yeah, Morbius is, spoilers are over for Morbius. Morbius is entertaining enough that I'd say maybe go on a matinee.
Okay.
It's not like a rush out and see it movie, but Madness makes it so much more worth it.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me. Let's move over to the other movie, The Bubble. That's the one we saw the trailer for a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna run down the concept, and then you can tell me if it's the one that I think it is, though. But I'm just gonna run down the concept because that's how we start things here. We like to be polite and proper.
It was a COVID movie, right?
Basically, yes. Do you want to do the rundown?
No, I just pulled up the trailer and I'm like, okay, yeah, it is the one I was thinking of.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to doing my job here and helping and giving you.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to stress that I do love this man as my friend, and I do not want anyone to think that I'm really like slamming him, because it's the show you came here for.
This guy's a fucking dick all the time to me, people.
Oh, for once, I'm not the one to use the fucking bleep first.
You did it too. That's funny. No, we had to talk about, because this started out as wasn't it like a joke trailer for some movie that Netflix was going to do, and then they found out that it's like, oh, this is that was just part of this other movie we're doing.
Okay, so I'll clarify that first, then get into the concept, then my thoughts. But basically, no. What happened was Netflix cut a fake trailer for the franchise that's at the center of this movie, Cliff Beast. It's poking fun at Jurassic Park. It's 100% right down to the movie uses the Jurassic Park font for its credits. But what they did was they hyped the movie. They promoted Cliff Beast 6 Battle for Everest Memory of a Requiem. And they put out a fake trailer for that. And then not too long after, it's like, oh yeah, you guys remember that we reported we were doing a movie about filming a blockbuster in COVID. Here's the actual trailer.
Yeah.
So basically that's the world of The Bubble. It's a pseudo reality where this cast of actors are now on their fifth sequel, fourth for Carol Cobb, who's played by Karen Gillan, because she kind of sat the last one out for an ill-advised career move of a movie. And now she's kind of like, yeah, I need to get back in the game. And it is the sixth film in a popular dinosaur-based franchise filming during the COVID-19 pandemic, which right there, that just squarely puts Judd Apatow and co-writer Pam Brady's script in the crosshairs of Jurassic World Dominion. Like, they just use that as like the kernel. And then they poke fun of so many other things like celebrity couples, TikTok influencers.
There's a lot of people in this, like big names.
This is one of the best casts I've seen. We'll just rattle it down quickly. Karen Gillan, Leslie Mann, David Duchovny, Iris Apatow, Pedro Pascal, Peter Serafinowicz, Kate McKinnon, Maria Bakalova from Borat 2, Veer Das. Like, there's just and there's a couple really good cameos in here that took me by surprise.
I won't say who's played him, but I saw it on the Wikipedia. Steve, the stunt coordinator.
Oh, that's one of them. And then the head of the studio, who Kate McKinnon reports to, is a surprise that I was very happy to see, because I love that gentleman as well. All of that said, this is a whiff. This is such a damn whiff. And
is it really?
Judd Apatow continues to have the same problem of his movies being too long and not knowing where to edit them. Because
hold on a second. Every time I say that about a movie, you're like, oh, you know, blah 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 blah. The movie can never be short enough or long enough. You give me that whole speech, but here you just threw it out against Judd Apatow.
The correct phrasing for what I say is a good movie can never be too long, and a bad movie can never be too short. Because that's paraphrasing Roger Ebert's view on the whole thing. And when people arbitrarily complain, oh, movies are too long, that's when I have a problem. If you have some, I keep it on a case-by-case basis, and if you have evidence that tells me a movie is too long, then I will listen to you, and The Bubble is too long. This is a 2-hour movie that could have been an hour and a half, or it could have been an extended series because it starts great. Like, it starts with a lot of really funny jokes. And, you know, again, you've got this great cast of people. Another person I forgot to mention is Guz Khan, who's also in Army of Thieves, which is a way better Netflix movie. And, you know, it starts with this really good comic energy. It's fast-paced. It's going crazy. Pam Brady, who is one of the minds that's currently working in the South Park writers' room, is the co-writer on this movie. And you could tell that this is one of Judd Apatow's most mainstream movies because it's not just focusing on, you know, personal stakes like this is life, you know, this is the funny things about life. This is him going broad and going satirical. And it could have worked. But what ends up happening is there are so many characters and so many ideas that get thrown into this that it runs out of gas by the time it gets to like the last half hour, it drags so damn hard. And it disappointed me because like the first half hour of this movie, it got some really good laughs out of me. And I love the cast that they have here. But then certain subplots are never fully resolved. Characters disappear for one reason or another, and that's just it. And then the movie calls out, this movie doesn't have an ending. Well, people won't complain about it. They've rarely ever noticed that it doesn't have an ending. But this movie does that same thing. It like rushes into this weak ending that just undermines everything. And save for like the big cocaine scene that you see in the trailers, that third act just sits in a corner with a juice box and is not interested in anything.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me on the line.
You burst the bubble, Judd Apatow! I want vengeance!
Oh, that's really funny. And how mad you got there. That's just wonderful.
I like getting on those chairs when I really feel it. So thank you.
Well, I just I always feel that way. There's a lot of the what I'll say for sure is Netflix series. They always seem like they're a little too long or they're a little too short. Where like if you cut out an episode or you cut out 20 minutes of the movie or whatever, they'd be a lot better. I make that argument and just being from Iowa, I guess I can't say that, but Mr. Movie Critic from the East Coast.
You can make that argument, and anyone can make that argument because that exact argument, because you backed it up. You're like, look, these things don't really have that much. I'm talking about people that go on the internet and say, whatever happened to just making movies an hour and a half?
Oh, okay. Look. Yeah, it's like anything else. It always comes down to editing.
Yeah, it's just, and I am up for nuanced arguments, but if you're just saying, just make movies an hour and a half, it's like, no.
Yeah. Do you want to start with, let's start with Will Smith because I would like to wrap up with the Bruce Willis stuff. I'd like to end on a better note than the Will Smith story, so.
Yeah, and also just that it's the hot story because there continues to be, I know words, I swear. There continues to be information and counterclaims that are coming out of all of this. As anybody knows, the latest update is the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the governing body that runs the Oscars, is currently looking into disciplinary proceedings. They're basically going through like their own formal investigation and figuring out how to respond to the incident of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. And from what I've heard, there are there's potentials of everything from expulsion to they might take his Oscar back. That's all just sort of hearsay at this point. Like no one really knows. But one of the sticking points of contention of the account of what happened that night is some have said, some in the Academy, like in the official statement, the Academy said that Will Smith was asked to leave but refused. Then sources came forward, unnamed sources came forward to TMZ and said that Will Smith was never asked to leave. In fact, Oscar telecast producer Will Packer allegedly asked him to stay. And the allegation was that there was no consensus in the control room between the people running the show as to how to handle, like, to ask him to leave or not. Then there was another claim that came out that said, Will Packer went on Good Morning America this morning and did an interview, and he said that they asked Chris Rock if he wanted the LAPD, if he wanted to press charges and if he wanted the LAPD to arrest Will Smith. And apparently he said, no, I don't want that to cloud the night. Don't do that. So there's a lot of claims, counterclaims, all sorts of information circling around all of this. And then on top of all of that, people thought that maybe Chris Rock would address the matter in his stand-up because he started the Ego Death Tour last night I think it was last night or the night before. I think it was 2 nights ago, yeah. And he started the tour in Boston. I made the road trip mistake. But he started the tour. Yeah, I got to lighten up a little bit. But anyway, he started the tour in Boston, and he's like, paraphrasing here, he's like, look, if you thought you were coming here to hear anything about that, you wasted your money. I had a whole show written this weekend. I'll talk about this at some point. It will be serious, and it will be funny. So if you're thinking that Chris Rock might address the whole Oscars debacle in his stand-up, he's not there yet, because he says he's still processing, and I can't blame him. Also, I will repeat what I started this with. We are in the middle of investigations and proceedings. Naturally, he's not going to want to say, I don't think he would want to say anything that would cloud them, because I certainly wouldn't. Like, the best thing anybody can do at this point is formally, Will Smith formally apologized. Chris Rock is like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not really going to, well, not to the apology, but thanks, but no thanks. I'm not going to talk about this right now. And they're just going to let official proceedings go. And my last comment on this is I agree with what Daniel Radcliffe said. He's like, I am severely bored talking about this because people really I'm paraphrasing again here, but I think he was like, I'm severely bored talking about this because people don't need our takes on this. This is a matter that happened between two men in a public setting, yes, but not everybody needs to weigh in on a take. And ultimately, we just need to see what happens and hope that everybody can just move forward peacefully, and this hopefully doesn't happen again at the Oscars.
Yeah, Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me on the line as we are running along in the tooth. I do want to get to Bruce Willis. Sadly, it was announced earlier this week that he's been diagnosed with aphasia, brain damage leading to him not being able to understand language or perform acts and all this, and he's going to retire from acting. That came from his daughter, correct, on her Instagram?
That was a blanket statement. That was an official statement, not a blanket statement, but that was an official statement that basically it looked like it went to everyone in the family social medias because
Okay.
Bruce's wife, Emma, also put it out. Demi Moore also put that statement out. And yeah, there's been a beautiful outpouring of love from co-stars and friends and people that have gotten to know Bruce Willis over the years after the announcement that he was diagnosed with aphasia. And what has also come out is there are a lot of reports from various films that he had been working on where, I am as guilty as anyone talking about how Bruce Willis apparently had this rule where it's like 2 days of work, $2 million, get in, get out.
Yeah.
I think this is what caused it, because there were stories of him, they would have to trim lines and basically not give him monologues for films. He was being fed lines through an earwig. And he, I still remember a while back, like he dropped out of a Woody Allen movie. And I remember people saying like, oh, he couldn't remember his lines. And then he was doing Misery on Broadway with Laurie Metcalf and also dropped out of that. And I remember how everyone at the time was like, oh, Bruce Willis, man, he's just being a diva. And now we're getting stories like this. And also he would like forget cue lines. There was a project where he needed to say a specific cue line so one of his co-stars could get behind hide from like prop gunfire. And he apparently was like forgetting lines like that and just firing off the gun. And, these are stories that before his diagnosis, if someone were to run these stories, the clear portrait would have been, oh my God, he's just out of control. He really doesn't care. But the fact of the matter is it looks like he's been dealing with this for longer than we thought. And, I think the reason he's been taking all these gigs is because he was trying to shore himself up as long as he could before he had to say, I can't perform anymore. And I know I walk back those comments and feel sorry for even making them.
Yeah,
and,
I guess it is one of those things where you don't know exactly when it started.
The worst thing that happened, and they had the sense to walk it back, was the Razzies made a tweet about how, I guess that they said something along the lines of, well, sorry to hear about Bruce Willis' diagnosis, but I guess that's why he wanted to go out with a bang, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a real crass tweet.
Yeah.
People called them out on it. And then they also had like a Bruce Willis worst performance category that they had labeled. And they've now rescinded that in light of actual, it's the least they can do. That's just, they got caught and they walked it back. That's the least they could do. But I just, looking at all of this, even making comments like that, I never tried to discredit Bruce Willis because you know what the man could do with one scene. He could do magic.
Yeah.
He is a consummate performer. He was a consummate performer, and I think he's earned a well-deserved retirement. And just, man knows comedic timing, man knew action. Now that he can just kick back and live it up, as his family said, that's fantastic. And just, I wish him the best. And yeah.
What would you say is your favorite Bruce Willis movie?
That is so hard, but I kind of want,
I get
there's
it.
So many
I get it, and that it's hard and all that, but if you're going to go back and you're going to celebrate Bruce Willis and his career with one movie, what would it be?
I might say 12 Monkeys.
Really?
Because it's very easy to just say Die Hard. Die Hard is the movie that definitely put him on the map. Between that and Moonlighting, he made such a splash in the 80s that people just loved him, and how couldn't you? But what he got to do with 12 Monkeys was something that was so atypical for himself that it's kind of like how when people talk about Gary Oldman's best performance, I'll throw out Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy because it's easy to go say The Professional because he's so good at being loud and bombastic. And that the everyone scene was a gag. Like, he just did that to surprise the director, and they kept that take. But you go back and look at movies like 12 Monkeys or even Sin City or even The Kid and like Moonrise Kingdom. These are movies where Bruce Willis got to do something that wasn't in the mold. He plays such sensitivity in 12 Monkeys as Cole because this guy is like mentally stuck in his childhood because he just happened to be growing up at the beginning of the apocalypse and the world just changed so severely around him. And all the while he has these visions of this thing that's going to that happened as he was a kid. And to see how that whole story plays out is just, they gave him so much to work with there. And I just appreciate every single inch of it. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's easy to just go back to the highlights.
Yeah.
But the movies where he was really, people trusted him to do something different and something deeper. Like Moonrise Kingdom, Bruce Willis is probably the last person you would have thought of to be in a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
And then he just goes and does it so beautifully.
I could tell you know what mine is?
What?
The Fifth Element.
Fifth Element's a good performance. Don't get me wrong. But that still feels like Space John McClane. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. I'm not going to say that I will not watch Space John McClane. I like Space John McClane.
I thought that movie was so it was so fun in a different way though. And yes,
because
it was almost sort of making fun of John McClane in a way of having them need a Space John McClane.
Oh, I don't think it made fun of him. If anything, I think it honored the John McClane. I think it honored the John McClane character even more because when you need a John McClane, you need a John McClane, and who better to play him? And also, it's just
nice hat.
Weird,
that's a nice hat.
Weird 90s sci-fi, weird 90s European sci-fi will always be a vibe and a jam for me. And yeah. He is, oh man. Anybody else want to negotiate? Like, he just drops a line like that, one line, and just when a performer gets their energy, gets why they're there, and then just drops a line like that, you understand why you hired them and why they are so well respected. And that is Bruce Willis in a nutshell.
Mike Reyes from Cinemablend.com joining me on the line to talk about movies. Mike, we'll wrap it up there for the week. You have yourself a good weekend, okay?
You too, man. Have a good one.